Welcome to Scenario, the podcast deep dive with critics, revenues, and new ideas. Today we're diving into, well, a really fascinating case study. It's from the world of ultra-luxury Hermès. And the big question we're trying to unpack here is how this iconic brand, how they've not just survived, but honestly absolutely thrived, especially when, so many competitors are actually faltering right now with this global luxury slowdown. We'll be digging into some great insights pulled from a new YouTube source by CNBC to really get under the hood of their unique strategy. It's often pretty counterintuitive.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want to do in this deep dive. We want to help you, the listener, understand the precise mechanics behind Hermès, their unmatched desirability, and also their incredible financial resilience, particularly, like you said, in an industry that's facing some serious headwinds right now. We'll look at what really makes them stand out, but also touch on maybe some subtle challenges they might still be facing down the road.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. When you think about the global luxury scene, Hermès, it isn't necessarily the biggest name in terms of sheer volume, and maybe not the most instantly recognized brand everywhere across the globe. But the research we looked at, it consistently shows it's seen, like unequivocally, as the status brand among the real elite. And they've held this really unique, powerful position for, almost 200 years now. That kind of legacy. It's hard to match. And naturally, when we talk Hermès, your mind probably jumps straight to their handbags, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially the Birkin and the Kelly. I mean, these are easily their most coveted items. It's actually kind of amazing to learn that just those bags, those two styles, they account for a full quarter of Hermès' total revenue.
A quarter, yeah.
And get this, on a resale market, these bags can fetch, $100,000, sometimes even more. Just think about that. An accessory appreciating like fine art. It really changes the definition of luxury, doesn't it?
It really does. And what's fascinating there, like you mentioned, is that when you're judging luxury brands, maybe the most critical metric isn't just sales figures or how many people know the name. It's desirability and Hermès.
Right.
They consistently top that list. So if we connect that to the bigger picture, it directly explains their incredible financial success. They are the world's fourth biggest luxury fashion brand by revenue. And by late October 24, their stock price, it had just soared over $22,000 a share, which pushed their market cap to more than $233 billion.
Wow.
And this kind of phenomenal growth, it's happening despite that global luxury slowdown we mentioned, the one that's really hurting a lot of other major players. It's just a really clear example of how that desirability, it translates directly into financial muscle.
Okay, so here's where it gets really, really interesting for me.
Yeah.
How exactly do they pull off this balance? I mean, managing strong sales growth, keeping those high margins, and they're a publicly traded company, remember, while also maintaining such intense exclusivity and desirability.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a contradiction in today's market, doesn't it?
It does. It really does seem contradictory on the surface. But the key, it really lies in the strategy they've honed over centuries. It puts scarcity right at the forefront. And that scarcity, it just fuels this fierce demand. Their history is absolutely central to this appeal, too. The brand started way back. Paris, 1837. Thierry Hermès. Initially, he was making super high-quality harnesses and saddles for European royalty.
Right, for the horses.
Exactly. So this deep heritage in, artisanal craft serving a very elite group, it's just baked into their DNA. Then they moved to the Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré, and they've been there since 1880. It really cements those Parisian roots and those famous bags. Well, the Kelly, famously named after Princess Grace Kelly.
Yeah.
And the Birkin, that came from a chance meeting on a plane with Jane Birkin, the actress. It's even noted, kind of a fun fact, Hermès was the first to bring the zipper back from the U.S. to Europe. So they had an eye for innovation, even way back then.
Interesting.
So how do they really master this luxury game? It seems to be this potent mix, right? That rich history, the meticulous craftsmanship. I mean, the time they spend on the leather, the stitching, it's extraordinary. Plus this uncanny awareness of what their very wealthy customers actually want. They're also vertically integrated, which is huge. It means they control pretty much their whole supply chain, from sourcing materials to the final product. Gives them massive control over quality and how much they produce.
And still family run, mostly.
Still largely influenced and run by the founding family, yeah. Fiercely independent. And crucially, their philosophy seems to be always aimed to make less than people want to buy. So that means fewer stores than they could probably sustain, fewer handbags released each year, fewer online sales than the market could easily absorb. And this deliberate holding back, it lets them kind of smooth out those economic ups and downs, gives them a buffer when things slow down. They seem very committed to sticking to what works, their core identity. They famously resisted, for instance, the whole streetwear trend that swept through luxury a few years back.
Yeah, you didn't see hoodies everywhere from them.
Exactly. And it's pretty remarkable. You look at their store count, it's way smaller than competitors like, say, Louis Vuitton or Gucci. But their revenue, their profit margins, their growth rate, and definitely their status, substantially higher. They really punch above their weight, you could say.
Right.
And that perceived value, it's immense. That's why Bernard Arnault, the head of LVMH, he tried for 4 years this big legal battle to get a major stake in Hermès.
I remember that.
Yeah, it didn't work out for him in the end, but it really highlights just how valuable and coveted Hermès is seen within the industry itself. And just one more indicator to look at their price-to-earnings ratio. It's basically how much investors are willing to pay for each dollar the company earns, kind of a bet on future growth. Hermès' PE ratio is more than double that of several big rivals. That shows incredibly strong investor confidence.
So it's not just about having the money to buy, say, a Birkin. It's like you have to play the game. Even the super rich, the sources say, they often need an in. You have to build a relationship with a sales associate, make several other purchases, sometimes pretty significant ones, just to even be considered for a Birkin or a Kelly.
Considered.
And there's only a limited number released each year, apparently with a strict quota too. Like a client can only buy 2 Birkin and Kelly bags per year.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And this is where the business model, it's undeniably successful, but it becomes really fascinating. And, well, some people might call it devious.
Devious.
Well, think about it. When someone sees you with a special limited edition Birkin, it's not just admiration for the bag itself.
Yeah.
People in the know understand that to get that specific bag, you've probably spent maybe 5, maybe 10 times its sticker price on other Hermès items. Scarves, belts, home goods, whatever, just to become eligible. Imagine walking into any other kind of store. You offer, say, $12,000 cash for a product they have. They say no, and then they advise you to go spend potentially hundreds of thousands on other things first, just for the chance to buy the original thing later.
It sounds completely insane to most people, right?
It does. But the analysis suggests this is actually one of the absolute keys to their success. They seem to understand the psychology of their core customer perfectly. It taps into that desire for extreme exclusivity, the thrill of the chase, maybe, and the idea that something earned through effort and access feels more valuable.
So the purchase becomes less a transaction and more like a status quest.
A journey.
Exactly. It transforms the whole experience.
Okay, that's a unique strategy for sure. But isn't there a risk? For a brand built on timelessness, does this kind of game risk putting off newer generations? Or even some loyalists who find it maybe a bit much? That's a really valid point, and it's probably a constant balancing act for them. But so far, the evidence suggests their core group, they actually value that difficulty. It makes getting the bag even more satisfying, maybe. Their typical customer tends to be older, extremely wealthy, perhaps less swayed by instant gratification trends. Younger buyers are definitely something they need to consider for the long term, but right now, clearly, the strategy is working for their target demographic.
Okay, so connecting this back to the wider market, what does all this Hermès strategy mean now? Because we are in a big correction in the luxury sector, right?
We absolutely are.
But Hermès seems to be, marching to its own drum. Well, we saw competitors like LVMH and Gucci's owner Kering reporting these sharper-than-expected sales drops in Q3 2024. And their share prices took quite a hit, right? Down like 13% and 40% respectively since the start of 24.
Significant drops.
Hermès in that same period saw double-digit revenue growth. And their share price, it actually went up almost 10% since the start of 2024. That contrast is just stark.
It really is. And if we try to understand why, well, part of it is the aspirational consumer, the person who isn't super rich but might save up to splurge on one nice luxury piece. That customer group has definitely pulled back spending because of economic pressures, and that's hurting many brands.
Right.
Now, Hermès wasn't totally untouched. In their Q3 24 earnings, they did mention sales growth slowed a bit in all regions compared to the year before. They admitted foot traffic was lower, but, and this is the crucial part, that customers who were coming in, they were spending more money per visit.
So the core remains strong.
Exactly. It really highlights how robust their core base of extremely wealthy clients is. They're much less affected by general economic swings. So while the wider luxury industry might face, a longer period of weakness, Hermès is still managing double-digit growth. Though sure, we might see some slowing down for them too over the next year, depending on what happens in key places like China, North America, Europe. And one other point on pricing, luxury prices overall have shot up like more than 30% since 2019. But Hermès' increases, while definitely there, have been a bit more moderate compared to, say, Chanel or Dior or Vuitton. Like, their popular bag models went up maybe 16% in recent years, and this
Mm.
year, pricing added about 8% to their growth. That's helpful cushioning when the overall market is slowing down.
So, despite this amazing run, are there any potential, clouds on the horizon? Any vulnerabilities for this seemingly invincible brand?
Well, nothing's ever completely invincible, right? One potential area is innovation versus timelessness. It's their core strength, keeping products classic. But they haven't really launched anything massively disruptive or new, aside from maybe new colors or materials for existing iconic products. So
Yeah.
that raises a question, doesn't it? At some point, could those timeless designs start to feel, well, dated? Especially if younger luxury buyers want more novelty or digital integration, things that don't quite fit the traditional Hermes mold.
Hmm.
There might be an opportunity for them to build up other categories more, make them iconic in their own right, like maybe watches, so they're not quite so reliant on the bags driving everything.
What about fakes? That must be a constant headache.
Oh, huge. The sources we looked at put the global counterfeit market at something like $4.5 trillion. That's massive.
Hmm.
And Hermes spends millions, apparently, just on legal fees fighting fakes. It's a never-ending battle, drains resources, and risks damaging their reputation if the fakes get too good or too common.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Then there are broader concerns, too. Things like sustainability. Their use of exotic animal skins raises ethical questions for some consumers. Climate change could also impact their supply chain. Think about getting high-quality Brazilian silk or European leather if weather patterns shift dramatically.
Right, materials are key for them.
And finally, that very exclusivity. The thing that drives their success, it could potentially backfire. While they haven't been hit as hard by aspirational buyers pulling back, if prices keep rising and wait lists get even longer, could they eventually push away even their most loyal customers? It's definitely a fine line.
And in fact, there's a specific legal challenge hitting that exact point now, isn't there?
Yes, exactly. Our sources mention a class action lawsuit filed back in March 2024 in California. It basically accuses Hermes of illegally tying sales, forcing customers to buy other goods just to get the chance to buy a Birkin. They argue it violates antitrust law.
Hmm.
The plaintiffs updated their suit with more details in October 2024 after the judge asked for more evidence. So it's ongoing, but it's a very public challenge to that devious business model we talked about. It questions whether the very thing that makes them so successful could actually be legally problematic.
Wow. Okay, so what a journey we've unpacked here. Hermes really gives us a masterclass, doesn't it, in how to build and sustain an ultra-luxury brand against the odds. They seem to have absolutely mastered desirability, scarcity, and the strategic resilience in what's a really dynamic and often tough market, all while, somehow, staying incredibly true to their unique DNA.
It really is quite something. And as we think about Hermes and where they go next, it does raise a fascinating question, maybe for you, our listener, to ponder. How does any brand, really, but especially one so rooted in tradition and exclusivity like Hermes, how do they effectively balance staying true to who they are with the undeniable need to adapt, adapting to changing consumer tastes, rising ethical concerns, even these direct legal challenges? What does true luxury even mean in this constantly shifting landscape we're in now?
That's a great question. Definitely something to think about regarding the future of luxury itself. This is all. Thank you, and to the next podcast.